You are now listening to Rings Kings Boxing World Flash Report.
All right, let's jump to the next situation here on Ring Kings Boxing. Spence fast-tracked the fight Fundora, Sebastian Fundora for a title shot. Now, what's interesting when this came across my desk, I was thinking about how how this fight would carry out. We've seen a bloody matchup between Sebastian Fundora and Tim Tszyu, where the last couple of fighters that Sebastian has been fighting has been guys that have been pretty good boxers. Tim Tszyu's a pressure fighter. He's a guy that wants to go pop with you. And Sebastian Fundora was able to stand in there. He took a lot of shots. He got blooded. He got his nose bust. He was leaking blood. Sebastian Fundora, I think he got gashed really bad. And Tim Tszyu got gashed really bad. He was bleeding. It was a nasty, bloody fight. They should have stopped that fight, by the way. It was all these guys bleeding all over the place. I thought that was incredibly ridiculous. It should have been stopped. But it was still a really interesting fight to see Sebastian Fundora and Tim Tszyu go at it. And ultimately, Sebastian was able to claim the belt. But now that Errol Spence is back into it, he's back trying to make a way into back in boxing, but not as a welterweight this time. He's trying to get the junior middleweight crown from Sebastian Fundora. And this is one of the situations where you look at it, so, okay, we know what Terence Crawford's got lined up, what he's attempting to do. But now here comes Errol Spence, and everybody was waiting to see what Errol Spence did. We know the stuff about what happened with him and Derek James. They ended up pretty bad. And, at first, you think about that camp, man, that they had with Derek James and Errol Spence, and they had the Charlos. Boy, how things have changed, man, since that. I got a report coming out on the Charlos, too, coming up on the channel real soon for you guys to check out. But Errol Spence wants back in, and he wants a shot against Sebastian Fundora for a title. Well, there was also a report saying that Sebastian Fundora, if he takes the fight against Errol Spence, that he could be possibly, I think he could be stripped of his belt because he was supposed to be lined up to fight. Hold on, let me see if I can pull it up, family. I'm gonna make sure I get this straight with the Sebastian Fundora fight, and perhaps they mentioned it in this article right here. Let's go into it and see what they're hitting on. Errol Spence moved up to the title against the WBO junior middleweight champion Sebastian Fundora in a fight being negotiated for October. Doesn't surprise anybody in boxing. The former unified heavyweight champion Spence, who's 21-1 with 22 knockouts, was allowed into the ring after Fundora's upset win over the WBO 154-pounder Tim Tszyu. And that was in March. And boy, by how time flies, right? That hinted that Spence will be the next opponent for the title in Inferno. Fundora, who's 21-1 with 13 knockouts to defend against. It's troubling because Spence is backing into a title shot of a knockout, lost to Terence Crawford last July, and he had a 15-month layover. Spence has never fought at 154, and yet he's a world title ahead of most deserving contenders. There's more about business. Spence is more popular than the contenders ahead of him at 154, so he's been vaulted to the top of the division. He's never fought to get a world title shot against the two-belt champion Fundora. So a lot of people feeling this way, that Spence is using his name and his influence to get an opportunity to step in there and try to get the belt, which is nothing new, man. I mean, people do this stuff all the time with guys that that don't deserve, or not, I don't want to say deserve a shot, but there are other guys that is supposed to really step in and get an opportunity and not getting a chance to show what they can do. But let me share this article with you guys here, because this is also something that I want to bring you aware of, because we talk about the Fundora situation. Let me add this into it to bring this into the fray to kind of talk about Fundora and this is also Boxing News. Shout out to them. It's Boxing News 24 covered this scoop as well, as that Fundora is to relinquish the WBO title belt for Spence fight Crawford to battle Madrimov for the vacant belt, which is very interesting. Let's go into it. We'll see if this carries the way it's supposed to. WBO junior middleweight champion Sebastian Fundora reportedly relinquished the WBO 150-pound title, 154-pound title, for a planned fight against Errol Spence Jr. in October. The move is due to the WBO placing Terence Crawford as the mandatory for Fundora's WBO belt. Now, according to Boxing Scene, rather than defend the WBO title against Crawford, Fundora will give up the strap and take the fight against Spence, 28-1 with 22 knockouts. Now, Spence's PPV power, a significant factor in Fundora's decision. He's trying to get paid. Crawford, who's 40-0 with 31 knockouts, is already scheduled to challenge the WBA junior middleweight champion Israil Madrimov on August the 3rd at BMO Stadium in Los Angeles. Now, this is going to be a very interesting fight, to be honest with you, because we know Madrimov is a guy that is a pressure fight in his own right. He got power in both fists. Crawford's way more skilled than this guy, but this guy is going to pressure you. So it's going to be interesting to see how Bud Crawford, who hadn't fought in a while either, does against a busy fighter that's going to be constantly coming at him. So on paper, Fundora's decision to fight Spence, who's coming off a loss to Crawford, seems weird. However, it does make business sense for him to do this because Spence is more of a proven pay-per-view fighter than Crawford, and it's a fight with a better chance of making money for Fundora. So would that be the case? Well, the Texas native Spence draws many fans to his fights at the 80,000-seat AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Spence's track record of pay-per-view fights is better than Crawford's, who hadn't done really good numbers until his fight against Errol last July. So that's what Sebastian is looking at. So he's kind of putting his business sense on right here to see if that would be, he wants to make some bucks doing that. He wants that. So he give up the belt to make the money. But at the end of the day, he can always circle back around for an opportunity to get the title shot that he wants. So a very interesting decision right here by Sebastian, who's looking for the money right now. He wants to get paid, and Errol Spence seems like a guy there. Now, listen, if you preview this matchup as Errol Spence fighting, he's 6'5", I want to say 6'5", and Sebastian Fundora. This is a tough fight for Errol Spence. And my question is, what kind of Errol Spence, what kind of fighter are we going to get with Errol Spence off that 15-something odd month layoff after getting literally just taken apart by Bud Crawford? What Errol do we get here? Because we haven't seen him since he was literally just embarrassed by Crawford. He was embarrassed. He got beat up. The memes came out with the Martin Lawrence when Martin Lawrence fought Thomas Hearns, an exhibition bout on Martin the show, and they showed pictures of him lumped up, and they started comparing that to Errol Spence. So the memes came out. He disappeared for a while, had to get his mind right, had to bounce back. So what kind of Errol Spence are we going to get against Sebastian Fundora? Because even though he might be more skilled than Sebastian Fundora, but it's still a very difficult fight because of Sebastian's reach. And he's not a garbage fighter. Sebastian's actually a pretty decent fighter. Now, he can get better. I think a lot of times guys can slip and get up under Sebastian and make him pay. Like you seen Tim Tszyu in that fight, was able to get up under him and hit him with some shots. But Errol Spence will find a lot of difficulty with Sebastian's size, and his punching power has some good punching power too. So like I said, it's going to be a very interesting fight. I can understand Sebastian looking to get the bag, then go at Bud Crawford. So if he had to pick between the belt and the bag and they're not the same, he took the bag. And he knows he's still young enough where if he's able to beat Errol Spence, he could cycle back around to the belt at a later date. But man, all I can say is, what do you guys think about this fight? Who wins in an Errol Spence versus Sebastian Fundora fight? Who do you think wins? Y'all let me know in the comment section below. Tell me, who do you think wins the matchup between Errol Spence and Sebastian Fundora, and why do they win the fight? Put that in the comment section below. All right.
Subscribe now and make Ring Kings Boxing your source for all the latest fight news.